Hello, welcome back to our weekly vlog, and today we are going to be discussing how we are literally around the corner from the Messianic age. My friends, the Moshiach, the long-awaited Messiah, is right here. He is with us in spirit, and all the crazy things that are going on in the world are a result of him coming. There are many, many factors that had to take place. I'm not going to go into all of them, but I just want to address two of them, which I believe we addressed last week. We're going to address again this week some, and one extra one. The first thing is what's going on in Syria, this crazy, terrible civil war that's been going on for years upon years. My friends, Moshiach is about to come. There are prophecies that the Jews will go into Damascus even for a half hour, an hour before the coming of the Moshiach. This is because ultimately, what is heaven? What is hell? Heaven and hell exist right here. Many people are living in heaven right now. Many people are living in hell right now. A great rabbi was brought to heaven. He was asked by God, would you like to see heaven? And he said, yes. And he saw this beautiful, beautiful table all set with delicacies. Obviously, it's perhaps a metaphor. People don't physically eat there. And then all the righteous people came in. The only crazy thing that he saw were the forks and the knives and the spoons. They stretched across the table. They weren't small to take a plate in front of you. They reached to the other person across the table. You couldn't understand it. And then, lo and behold, everybody took some of the food, a little bit of the soup with the spoon, and fed the person opposite. And they all loved each other so much because they helped each other. And then God said, would you like to see hell? And he said, yes. And he saw the exact same scene. But he said, God, that was heaven. God said, no, just wait. And as they came in, you know what he saw? He saw that everybody tried to take that soup, but they didn't try to feed the person. They tried to steal from the person, and they tried to get it into their mouth, but the fork and the spoon was too much, and everybody hated each other because they were stealing from one another. In other words, the same world in which we love each other is heaven, and the world in which we hate each other is hell. And this is the great irony of life. God began life with giving us everything. The Garden of Eden, we had everything. Cain and Abel, they had everything. The only issue in life is jealousy. When I think that you have more than I have, I think that you don't deserve to have more than I have. So instead of, this is like a story with the two very famous prodigies, the Rebbe Rashab, Reb Shalom Ber, and his brother, the Reb Zalman Aaron. So once they came crying to their father. So the father, the Rebbe Marash, said, what's the problem? So the Shalom Ber said, the Razah, he pushed me. He pushed me into this pit. So his father said to the Razah, why did you push your brother into the pit? So he said, it's not fair. He says, why is it not fair? He says, he is younger than me and he's taller than me. So the Rebbe Marash said, so why didn't you stand on a chair? You see, my friends, unfortunately, human nature is such that instead of lifting ourselves up when we're down, what we often do is we resort to the easy way of pulling someone down. And therefore, unfortunately, the Arabs are the last bastion of evil. And if you're an Arab, I love you, and I hope you forgive me. This is very important for everybody to hear, perhaps yourself included, so we can get out of jealousy and hate and into love and harmony. And as you know, of course, the Jewish people are the only country where the Arabs are free. They have Supreme Court justice. They're doctors, they're lawyers. They are full citizens of the country with the highest, I think, GDP of any average Arab in any country. So the Jews are better to the Arabs than the Arabs are to themselves. So that's a side point. The point that we're trying to make is, unfortunately, the Arabs have a jealousy. 4,000 years ago, they were kicked out of the home, and as a former PLO terrorist who, thank God, became a Christian and became a lover of Jews and a lover of life instead of a killer, said to me, this is the subconscious hatred. And if you look at the videos of, I forget his name, Gil, who goes around asking, unfortunately, somebody asked him the question, people pose a question, he goes around asking the question, somebody asked him a question to ask the Arabs in Israel, how much do you hate the Jews? And even though one of them, to his credit, he says, I don't hate everybody, the average, which is probably getting to about, from my recollection, was about 90% said somewhere between, I don't know, 7 to 8. So the Arabs unfortunately have this terrible hatred. Where does that hatred come from? It comes from jealousy. They feel shame. And therefore, when we feel shame, it's like a bully. It's what an anti-Semite is, what a radical that hates the West is. It's somebody who unfortunately has a negative self-opinion. Somebody gave them a complex and they're jealous of people that feel good about themselves. So my friends, ultimately, the bottom line of life is that we have to live and let live. We have to let other people be successful. We have to be happy for their success. And unfortunately, I think we often learn the hard way. I think the Jews in Israel, we also were quite tribal, and not having the proper respect for one another that led to the destruction of the Second Temple and our dispersion. And the Western world had 2 world wars, and then they gave up the notion that it's a good idea to take over countries. And I believe the same thing is happening to the Arabs with their Arab winter. They're so busy killing each other, realizing that war is not the way. In fact, the Arabs now, as Netanyahu, everybody in the know knows, they're coming and Israel is helping them with their terrorist problems. So you see this humility. When we get rid of our arrogance, when we get rid of entitlement, that is when we begin to feel that the other person has a right to exist just as I have a right. The live and let live comes in. And it seems that the Israel is being pushed by God to finally go into Damascus once and for all. They need to make a little parade there, and the Arabs will become humble. And when they are humble, they will become good people. They will become lovers of life, lovers of all people, themselves included, lovers of the Jews, and then they will not be, I recently learned a new word, ornery. Ornery is just antagonistic. And so this is about to happen. The second great event that's happened just this week is we had this crazy storm. They called it a bomb, hit the Northeast. Now, there's been such incredibly insane weather patterns, and this was predicted by the great Kabbalists, and this is a sign of the coming of the Moshiach. Again, this makes us humble. When everything is good, we think, oh, I'm in charge. I don't have to think about my friend. I can just take care of myself. It's interesting. Unfortunately, when the bombs are dropping, even in Israel, sometimes people can be a little ornery. And when the bombs are dropping, suddenly everybody's so nice. Why? Because suddenly we're not so self-focused. Not that we're bad. We're just too self-absorbed. But once these little tragedies strike us, we wake out of our self-absorption. It's like somebody who's an addict. In fact, it says in the Talmud that if somebody is drunk, they get a big fear, their high goes away. In other words, you wake up. We got to wake up. And because the Mashiach is coming soon, you have a great responsibility, because everything you do which is positive will bring the Mashiach. And I'll conclude with the famous words of my master, Rabbi Schneerson, who said that the Mashiach is already on his way. From our part, we just need to add in goodness and kindness, and he will come immediately. And may you be the one, may the last great deed that tips the scales, bringing the Mashiach for all of humanity, because the dead will rise. So you're not only affecting our generation, you're affecting all generations. May it be the extra charity, the extra love, the extra kindness that you do specifically to bring Mashiach. Go for it.